The Arduino Uno R3 has dominated the Arduino lineup for over a decade, but I think things are about to change a little bit, because now we have the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi and the Arduino Uno R4 Minima. In this lesson, we are going to take a close look at the R4 Wi-Fi. It packs 2 new processors, several hidden features, and 96 individual addressable LEDs, just to name a few of the new interesting aspects of the R4 Wi-Fi. We'll talk about all that stuff plus a ton more. Let's go. So let's dive into the specifications. The Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi has an RA4M1 ARM Cortex M4 32-bit processor. That's compared to the Atmega 328P 8-bit processor in the Arduino R3. That is a 3x clock improvement. But the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi also has an ESP32S3 on it, which clocks up to 240 megahertz. You'll notice the big difference between these connectors. This is a USB-B. Now we're down to this nice USB-C connector for the R4 Wi-Fi. You'll notice the pinout remains the exact same. We'll talk about some of the additional functionality you get on these pins, but as far as footprint goes, the R4 Wi-Fi should be a drop-in for the R3. An addition on the R4 Wi-Fi is a quick connector pin for connecting up different sensors, so you can add a sensor without having to solder anything up. There's also built-in peripherals on the R4 Wi-Fi, like an op-amp, a digital to analog converter, and even a real-time clock, and they have connections where you can add a battery backup to the real-time clock so it can maintain time. And if you haven't noticed, it's got 96 individual LEDs in this big old matrix right here. It also has a CAN bus built in, making it easier to talk to automotive and industrial modules. Now, unlike the R3, the R4, and that's the Wi-Fi and the Minima actually, can act as human interface devices, or HIDs. That means when you plug it in, you can make it act like a keyboard or a mouse, which is pretty neat. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment here. Now, what has stayed the same between here is these are both 5-volt boards. Now, the ESP32 is still a 3.3 volt board, and there are some pinout options just for the ESP32. So if you're going to be working with that directly, you'll need to use 3.3 volt signals, but the rest of the board are all 5 volt. Now, the input voltage on the DC jack and the VIN pin for the R4 has increased all the way up to 24 volts. But it's worth noting that each GPIO pin can only supply 8 milliamps of current, as opposed to the 20 milliamps per pin limit on the Arduino R3. As far as memory goes, the Arduino Uno R3 had 32 kilobytes. Now we've got 256 kilobytes on this RA4M1, plus 384 kilobytes on the ESP32S3. There's only 2 kilobytes of RAM on the Arduino R3, but we've got 32 kilobytes of RAM on the RA4M1 and 512 kilobytes of RAM on the ESP32. The EEPROM available is just 1 kilobyte on the R3 and 8 kilobytes on the RA4M1. And I kind of already touched on it, but note that the